When you receive your saw, it is very important to inspect for any shipping damage as soon as it arrives and report it back to Everett. Remove all of the packing materials and make sure to locate the manual inside of the saw. Bolt the saw to the floor to ensure operating stability. So once a qualified electrician has connected power to the saw, you're going to want to make sure that the arbor is rotating in the correct direction on three-phase saws. Single-phase saws will be set from the factory. The three-phase saws can go either way depending on how you arrange the three ways. So we're going to take off this flange, take off the nut and the flange, and then we're going to want to just start the saw, stop the saw, and make sure that it's spinning in the right way, which it is, so we are all good. So now that we've got the saw bolted to the floor, we've got rotation in the proper orientation, power is to the saw, we're going to check to make sure that the hydraulic system is functioning properly. So we're going to turn the pump on and move the saw back and forth and make sure that it responds to the buttons properly and everything is in good shape from shipment. All of our power head saws feature end of cut detection, which automatically retracts the blade once the blade is through the part. And so this works using an amp meter in the electrical cabinet that is monitoring engine load as you cut. But it also uses these two limit switches that are the two outer bounds of the travel. And so we're going to have to set those, but to do that we need to do it carefully, so we need to adjust our feed rates. So to adjust the speed at which the rocker moves through the part, we need to turn these two dials. One of them will be the up speed, which we generally want to keep open all the way so that the saw will retract quickly. But the down speed we were going to want to dial in so that we move at a slow rate while we're setting all of our limits. And so I'm going to turn the pump on and I'm going to hit the down button and then I'm going to turn the dial, and you see how it picks up speed? I want to slow that way down, just like that. And then on the upstroke, for now I want to slow that down and have that moving at a slow rate. So since I set that feed to that slow rate, now I can position this to set the upper limit. So I'm going to turn the pump back on and I'm going to lower that until we're about a ½ inch from the back of the saw. And now I can turn my pump off and I can go and adjust my upper limit. So now I'm going to adjust this switch by sliding it up and down this threaded rod, and I want to make sure that this plunger is pressed up against this plate. And now our upper limit is set, so that's where the saw will stop on the upstroke. And so now we're going to set the lower limit, and so with this down feed set at a low speed, we're going to bring the saw head down, and we can adjust the knob, kind of bring it down quickly, and then slow it down right at the end by dialing that feed needle in. And we want to go until we're not going to interfere with anything in here. So we're going to let it keep going down until we're about a ½ inch or a ¼ inch above this vice plate. So now with the hydraulic unit still running, but the feed stopped, we can come in here and the saw at our level that we want it. We can turn this until it meets that sensor and retracts. And then we can tighten this nut down. And now the lower limit is set. So with the limit switches set now, we can show that this will automatically stop itself at the end of both travels. So now that we've set up the feed system, we're going to connect the air line, and you're going to find this regulator on the back of the machine. Connect your air line, and then depending on what kind of material you're cutting, you're going to want to adjust the pressure in the unit. So right now we're at 50 psi, and you can lift up this knob and adjust it accordingly. So I'm going to bump this up to about 80. And that should be enough pressure to hold anything that we're going to want to hold. And then you just push it down to lock it, and then the air pressure is set. Okay. And then we'll come up on the front, and we have the actuator for the air vices right here. And there's these adjustment screws that control the amount of pressure that actually goes through the cylinders. And so if we screw this all the way in, we'll see that the motion is really slowly. And if we come out, you can have very fast action. So we'll leave it right there and lock this down. And now our air vices are set and ready to go. So when you're ready to put a new wheel on the saw, which you can buy online at everettindustries.com, you're going to raise the wheel guard. And this flange and nut should just be on here from the shipping process. We'll remove those. And we'll slide this wheel onto the shaft, push it up against that inner flange. And we're going to want to make sure that this indentation on the flange is pressed against the wheel, like so. We're going to take our nut and just screw it on hand tight. And then we're going to take our wrench and we're going to turn this 1/6 of a turn, about one flat, so just until snug. You don't need to crank on these. It's just a little bit of torque that will tighten that wheel down for you. And then you're going to want to lower the wheel guard, and now you're ready. So now that we've got the air line connected and we've got our limit switches set on the saw, we're at the point where we can cut. So we need to know how fast the saw will move through the stroke. And so generally speaking, on a dry cutting process, we target 5 seconds per square inch of material. And this is kind of a rate at which the wheel will break down enough to keep the grains sharp and to get efficiency in your cutting, but not too slow that you're waiting on the saw. And so 5 seconds a square inch is a good starting point for dry cutting. 10 seconds per square inch is a good starting point for wet cutting. And so right now, I have a 1 inch by 1 inch block, and so it's 1 square inch of material, so it should take 5 seconds for that wheel to pass through this block. And so if you have a 2 square inch cut, you're going to be at around 10 seconds for dry cutting. And this is just a baseline starting point. Depending on how you experience the cut, you might adjust that. You might be able to go faster and slower, but this is a good starting point for us. So now we're going to show you how to set up that speed rate in a very logical way. So I'm going to take my 1 square inch block and I'm going to put it in the vise. And I'm going to turn the pump on and I'm going to lower the saw down until it's right above that block. And I'm going to hit the feed hold button right when I'm at the top of that. And you're going to need a timer. You can just use the timer on your phone for this part. And I'm gonna hit the start button on the timer and the saw at the same time so I can see how fast I'm moving through the cut. So that was 2.5 seconds. So that's a little too fast. So I'm gonna reset and I'm gonna screw in my feed. And with that lined up, I'm gonna start again. I'm gonna make some more adjustment. And try again. And that's gonna be too slow. So I'm gonna come out. A little bit closer. And you're just gonna have to go back and forth until you get this right. It might take a few tries. So right there, that was 5.6 seconds. So we're gonna sit with that because that's close enough. So now that we're ready to cut, make sure you're wearing the proper PPE. So glasses and earplugs at least. And we're gonna put the block in the vise. We're gonna activate the vise. And I've actually lowered this limit switch down too, so the saw is just hovering above the part so we can get a little quicker feed, not air cutting so much. And then I'm going to turn the pump on, I'm going to turn the saw motor on, and then I'm going to hit the down feed. And the saw, because it has end of cut detection, will go all the way through the part, detect the end of the cut, and automatically retract. So that concludes our video on how to receive an Everett Industries cutoff saw. If you go to our YouTube or our website, everettindustries.com, we have more tutorials like how to change a wheel, how to change pulleys, or how to change a belt. Everything that you need to cut efficiently with any of our saws. So thank you for watching.